Hi. Um, so my talk is more about why would you care about natural language versus like a UI? Why do you even need that? Then why would you like to use a service as opposed to roll out your own solution? And then at the very end, I just talk a bit about wit, but I just want to open the dialogue more, like hear what are your pain points, and then I can also do a demo of wit, but I guess like most of you know it already. If not, I can do a demo and we can build a bot together. I didn't prepare that. It's your call. Oops. Of course. Okay. So who am I? So I co-founded Wit 3 years ago now. So we were first and we invented the .ai. Thank you. Then we joined Facebook 2 years ago, and now I work on Wit, and I worked on M the past year. So that's how my talk is structured. Why would you care about natural language? Like, we have a tendency to add more UIs today. You see Messenger, the Facebook platform, adding like quick replies, adding a menu. It's like people shy away from natural language because they realize that, as we've seen, it's actually really, really hard to do. Then why would you use a platform? And then what does we do now? What work? What doesn't work? And what are we planning to do like next year? Or yeah. So why natural language? First, in the sessions, we heard people complaining that Messenger, Kik, Telegram, they all have different APIs. It's a pain in the ass. But natural language is cross-platform. Like, everybody speaks it, everybody knows how to use it. So that's why you care about natural language. You can use it on Messenger, you can use it on older clients, like even text message. And in the future, what's coming really fast is VR and AR. And here you could have a panel in VR and like do stuff. But if you already have a bot, it's gonna work out of the box in VR too. And if it's done well, it's actually can be very, very robust if you use like proven machine learning solutions to do intent detection and these kind of things. Actually, it works really well. And if you apply the best practices, like asking the user what they mean instead of trapping them in some kind of state that they cannot get out of, then it's gonna work. And actually, like, we are all talking about build a bot in 1 minute, build a bot in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Well, yeah, it is faster to implement a bot by describing just a few examples as the two previous presenters showed. Like, you can prototype something really, really quickly. If you have a service and you don't have an interface yet, like, you can choose a UI, you can choose a bot, and the bot will be done very, very quickly, actually. But then you need some kind of iterative process to teach the bot, as we've seen in both platforms, and Wit has it too, the concept of inbox, where you, when the bot doesn't understand something, then it goes into the inbox, and then you keep training the bot like this. But if you decide to go the natural language way, it's going to be very tough, because now you have this text input, and you cannot control it. Like, the user can say anything. So, I mean, I think we've stressed that point enough. Like, the assumption around NLU is that it's actually very simple. I just receive a string, I'm gonna run some regexes, and then I'm gonna get some JSON back, and super easy. Now I can just like move on to the next problem. But actually, no. So that's the XKCD about the regexes. Now you have two problems. In reality, user expectations are really, really high, because it's the interface that we use every day, you and I, to talk. Then I'm going to reuse exactly the same interface to talk to your bot, and then they'll be like, you don't understand anything. I'm asking you about the presidential debate, and you're like asking me a large pizza or small? I don't understand. So it's actually a very, very hard problem. And it's, I would argue, maybe I'm going to make some enemies here, but it's harder than computer vision. Because the word, like a picture of a cat always normalizes to an actual cat, like a cat in a forest, a cat in a picture, it's always a cat. But what is Mark? What is the verb to Mark? What is Mark Zuckerberg? Is it your friend Mark from your contact book? It's actually really, really hard. It's all about context. So because it's all about context, actually there is a very fine line between the intent detection itself that the platforms provide and your business logic that only you can access, like the contact list to know that Mark is a friend. So there is a very, very fine line that is extremely hard to strike for platforms to actually integrate with your business logic. So in Wit, we kind of have the two extremes. Like we can talk about that later if you're interested. Where one extreme is just like we do NLU and then we dump you some JSON and then you do like all the normal constraint checking that we mentioned before. Like I need to know the size of the pizza, so I'm going to ask for the size. That would be done in your code in the very minimal version of Wit. And then we have an extreme version of Wit where we actually use machine learning to know that, oh, we noticed that when we don't have the size, you always ask about the size, so we're going to learn that the size is actually required. So that's the other extreme that we released a few months ago. So what does a platform give you? Hopefully I convinced you that natural language is useful, but why would you use a platform instead of rolling your own? First, you can trust Google, Microsoft, and Facebook to know more about AI that you guys do. No offense, even me, I don't know anything about the latest stuff that's going on at the Facebook AI research. It's actually very complex and cool stuff. But once you integrate with one platform, as soon as there is a new breakthrough somewhere, it's going to be implemented right away. Like a paper is going to be published. Facebook, Google, and Microsoft will all implement it, whatever the platform, and then you can leverage it right away. But unless you have a PhD in-house, then it's going to be hard to do if you're a startup. Then you also have this kind of complex infrastructure that is, we first train a first version of your bot, and then as people interact with it, then it gets better and better. So that's something that may sound trivial, but it's actually kind of hard to implement. And also, I just want to say, at any point in that talk, interrupt me if you have questions. I want to keep it like interactive. Also, a platform, and I think API.ai is the best in class at that time. They give you built-in modules. So, as we've seen, the chit-chat module, the social protocol, like when you say hi in API.ai, for example, you can just check a box that says, "Okay, I want to understand hi," in which you would have to provide like 5 examples instead. And also, these modules actually require a lot of data, and once again, the major platforms, they have a lot of data, so we know how to say, how's the weather today in like Tagalog, and you don't. And also, actually running machine learning algorithms at scale, it's actually very expensive. You need like a lot of computing power to train the algorithms and also at runtime. So Brad mentioned that if you have more than one QPS, you should talk to us before going to production, otherwise it may blow up. And it's the same today in WIT, and that's one of the things we're working on actually.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Is there a ceiling, 1 query per second?
No, it's just if you do have 1 query per second or more, you should at least send us a message before going to production so that we make sure that we can cater to your use case. And that's, that's the same for API.ai too. So when not to use a platform, I'm not saying use a platform all the time. Like sometimes you don't even need natural language. In that case, use regexes. If actually your domain is very simple, don't use natural language. Or you can use these quick replies capabilities in the various frameworks. Or maybe you are an expert in NLU, you have a few PhDs in your startup, that's fine. You also have a lot of money to pay for the cost of infra, that's fine. Or sometimes the platforms are actually too weak and not expressive enough to let you express the intricacies of your business, and that's fine in that case. In that case, I would say you should reach out to any of the platform that you're using, your platform of choice, and try to see how you can model your vertical, or what features are actually missing to model your domain. Because today I think, at least in WIT, but I think the other platforms too, we do a pretty good job at giving you extreme flexibility into describing your domain. And sometimes you cannot do third parties. It was interesting to hear about compliance in like this morning in a few sessions. That's a very valid case, but I think that's the minority. Okay, so I'm going to focus a bit on wit, and then I'm going to open it up for questions or a demo if you guys have no questions. So in wit, we started with that idea that you should be able to configure your domain from the ground up. Like wit, when you create a new app, it knows nothing about the world, and then you start telling it about your world. And so it kind of tailor the algorithms to your domain very easily. We also have this slogan, like everybody else, 5 minutes to a bot. And then you have the learning loop where actually you make your bot smarter as you go. And that works really, really well. Like in every hackathon people use wit, they're like, okay, I thought the NLU would be the hardest part. After 10 minutes, I was already like done with it. Then we also have, if you're afraid of locking your data in, we also have APIs to add, read, create data. So we have the export feature. And that's really something that you should demand from any platform that you use, that your data is not trapped in the platform. And what's been working really well is also having a very close contact with the community. As a startup, we did a lot of hackathons. We have a very good support. And we like to open source stuff, so we open source this. If you guys want to roll out your own solution, I would advise that you have a look at this. It's actually a poster that we built in-house, and that's going to be used at Facebook internally too. Just shameless plug. I'm just going to show you real quick. It's open source, so you can contribute to it or use it. So, just to give you an idea, you should say 2 weeks after Christmas. It's going to decompose it into an integer. Weeks is a duration. After, it's a modifier. Christmas is a point in time. And then it's going to return the normalized date. So if you guys like roll out your own, at least use open source stuff. And okay. Yeah. So what did not work? So I explained earlier that we have two modes in wit. We kind of have the very low-level understanding part where you send us the string and we dump some kind of JSON to you. Then we have the other extreme that we released a few months ago. We called it stories, like Instagram and Snapchat. And basically, it's the code that says, if I don't have the size, then ask for the size. It's trying to learn it. So it's still a very experimental feature, but if you want to play around with it, we have a few use cases where it works actually really, really well. And basically, you don't have to write any code, and the machine learning does everything, but I wouldn't say that it's like the best thing on earth. We're still figuring it out. It's been also hard to onboard big companies. For example, we had Call of Duty. I mean, EA was releasing some kind of Call of Duty campaign, and they were expecting, I don't know, maybe 20,000 requests per second. We were not ready for that. So we just said, no, sorry guys, you're going to have to do regular expressions this time.
That went over really well.
Yeah.
Do you have that all together?
Oh no, actually, you work on that? Okay, cool. I actually didn't know. Yeah, and okay. And we kind of grew too fast too. We were a very small team as a startup, and then we joined Facebook. We started working on M, like starting the project of M. So we kind of didn't really have time to support the community as much. So the past year, I would say that we have 60,000 developers using wit. And we haven't done a great job at being super responsive on Stack Overflow and everything, even though we still have a presence. So I think that's something that we need to improve. So what's next? We want to be able to onboard people with thousands of QPS extremely good reliability without you even having to tell us. Like, we are actually reusing the technology that powers Facebook.com itself to do it now. So it's going to be very, very scalable, like no issues whatsoever. Because one of the drawbacks of using a platform, if the platform is down, then you're down. So then we have a very close relationship with the Facebook AI research team. So anything that they kind of invent or discover, we can implement it in a platform really quickly. And from the get-go, it has been about sharing. So we want more data sharing. We're thinking about standard data schemas to describe your bot, for example, so that you can either create it programmatically or move it from one platform to the other very easily. And then we also want to have more features around code sharing, so using GitHub more or maybe NPM, where you would just in Wit check the box that says, I want to do the weather, because that guy from the Wit community actually did a weather bot, so I just want to reuse it. You can think of it as a shopping cart, like I want this bot and that bot, and I'm going to merge them into a bigger bot. And then we also want to do more code sharing, so with that bot you would just do npm install, and then you would have the weather module working out of the box. And maybe we can get down to 2 minutes for a working bot. Okay, that's it. So, yeah.
The last point you just made a second ago. Oh, sorry. The point you just made a second ago, that checkbox seems particularly complicated. Can you talk a little more about how you just check a box and a whole other conversational thread of weather is brought into your pizza ordering agenda?
Well, because it's...
that seems tricky.
Well, you basically, it's so the devil is in the details. Like at a high level, how it works is that you're basically merging data sets of machine learning data sets. So you're saying, I'm going to take that data set like that knows about weather. I'm going to take that other data set. I'm merging them, but then you have a lot of issues with granularity actually, because the intent may be, I want to book a hotel, or I want just to cancel a reservation. And some people will model that in the same intent or the same app, and some will have a finer granularity, like maybe I want to cancel that kind of hotel will be an intent. So yeah, I feel like it's too rich of a subject to just do now, but we can like talk about it if you want.
So I have a question for all the platform companies. To start with you, Willie. I mean, are you guys planning on opening up a chit chat module? That's such a huge problem, and that's one of the few things that startups have a hard time solving for, because that's a pure data play. So I'd love to hear if you guys are focused on that.
Yeah, so for us, what's great is that we're also working on M. So we are tackling these kind of issues, and we have access to Facebook data. And internally, we're advocating really strongly to open up as much as we can. So it's definitely in the plans. I can't really give you a date right now, but yeah, that's exactly the philosophy that we have. Like, start. Really, every bot needs this kind of stuff, so we just want to add it to the platform. It just makes sense.
Pandora's like we already have it.
Yeah, from Microsoft, I don't have anything specific to add, but we do hear that request a lot, and it's certainly in the realm. It's very related to many of the existing AI language services that we build. So I can't comment on exactly what it would look like, but I think that's certainly a very interesting area, and yeah.
I can speak to IBM Watson Conversation. We actually will be launching a greetings intent. But shortly thereafter, actually later in the year, we will have a full multi-turn chit-chat or small talk pre-built content that we're going to be integrating into the tool.
I mean, I demoed it, right? It's there?
I mean,
You
more
more.
like, if I say, how was your day?
Yeah. We do How's Your Day? Multi-turn. Yeah.
That's all in there?
Try. Let me know where the bugs are. We're happy to extend it.
You're talking about chit chat as a service, right? I want So another question for the platforms. Oh. Where are you guys with multi-language? Like supporting French or any?
So I'm French, as you may have heard. So in wit, and I think it's the same for everybody, we kind of have two kinds of algorithms that we run. We have the one based on machine learning, and basically if you have the data, then it's going to work. So we even had people doing Elvish in wit because it's just based on data. So we can learn any language, but then you have this, so that's the machine learning algorithms. Then you have another kind of algorithm that is more based on rules. Even in 2016, rules are still useful, and that's exactly what it is, duckling, for example, what I demoed earlier. So that's based on rules, and if you look at the code, it's really ugly. It's just regexes done in a smart way. So we are French, so we did French and English for duckling. But then the community contributed translations of the rules. So for example, we don't speak Chinese. Actually, that's not true. My co-founder speaks Chinese, but he didn't do it. And a Chinese guy out of nowhere just did a pull request and basically implemented the Chinese version of duckling, which was pretty amazing. So on the multilingual stuff, I think from the biggest platforms, you can expect them to support multilingual. I mean, I think Microsoft, Facebook, and Google should be able to do that.